Ladies and gentlemen, 0 hour is here. The globalists are making their move. They are backed into a corner, and like a cornered animal, and animals they are desperate. And here to talk to us about what's going on with our dear friends north of the border, people with great courage, people of Canada who are standing up to tyranny, is Stefan Verstappen. Thanks for joining us, my friend. Been too long.
Always a pleasure, Dave. Anytime. And thanks for having me back on again and thinking of me.
Oh, absolutely. You know, when I started looking at this, I said, I know someone that's going to know what's going on and give us a good perspective. And you're an expert at community formation and organizing communities for prepping and surviving. And I know that the Yavapai County Preparedness Team reached out to you and here in Arizona,
That's right, yeah.
and they're in 7 different states. And so, you know, I know this is in your wheelhouse, but you're also a voice in the past. You've always been a voice of good humor, but calm, reserve, um, measured in what you say, but you don't hold back. You do not hold back, and that's why I knew you'd be a good guest for what's going on. Well, I got to tell you, all of my colleagues here that I speak with, Doug Thornton, Doug Hagman, Ted Brower, Paul Preston, all of these guys have great admiration for what's happening in Canada. Tremendous.
Well, I thank you very much. And, I have already apologized to my fellow Canadians because for the last 10 years, I've called Canada a nation of cucks and Karens because I was so frustrated with the inaction of Canadians to fight this obvious Bolshevik takeover of our country. But I apologize to my Canadians again, my fellow Canadians again. I have never been so proud in my life of being a Canadian
Yep.
as I have in the last 3 weeks. I am overwhelmed. I went out to see the truckers when they drove past. Now, I live in a small town, a rural farming community. We're surrounded by farm fields, and the town was originally founded by Mennonites. And so there is an overpass across the highway where the truckers were scheduled to drive through. This was about 3 weeks ago. And my good friend Dixie dragged me out to go say hello because it's hard to get me to do anything these days. But so we went over to the overpass. Now, the highway that runs across Canada goes through hundreds of miles of nothing, just prairie and fields. But on every single overpass, for the last 2,000 miles, there were dozens, if not hundreds, of people, Canadians, everyday Canadians, standing on the overpasses, waving flags, holding signs, "We love you, go truckers." And the same was true for the overpass near this small town. We went there, and I'm telling you, all the people that were there could have stepped out of a Norman Rockwell painting. I mean, this is the Canada I used to know when I was a child. Healthy, fresh-faced, good-looking, honest people, families, husbands and wives and their kids and babies and teenagers, and they were all out there. They all drove out from the small town out to this empty space of a highway, and they lined the highway to greet the truckers. And I've never seen such good-looking people before, and everybody was getting along and hugging each other and giving a high five and saying hello. And then they did this in sub-zero weather, Dave. It was so cold. We
Yes.
It was sub-zero. I think it was like minus 15, minus 20. But we also had like a 15, 20, or 10 to 15 mile per hour wind. It was brutal cold, brutal. Even Canadians don't like this kind of cold. And despite the horrible climatic conditions, there were dozens and dozens of people, families, little kids, mothers, grandmothers, holding and waving the Canadian flag. So this is not a fringe movement. This is actually the majority of Canadians and real Canadians. And when I got back home and went onto the internet, now I got to stay calm, Dave. My friend Dixie told me that I shouldn't be yelling and swearing so much.
Yeah, and this was a family show too.
Because that's what the events of the last 3 weeks have left me with, swearing and yelling a lot. But I get back and I see that Prime Minister Justin Castro, um,
That's good. I like that. I'm going to use that again.
yeah,
I call him Fidel Trudeau. That's good.
or I call him Mr. Dress Up, the dancing snowflake.
How about just blackface hypocrite?
Yeah, blackface hypocrite's good. That applies. To hear that this sniveling little weasel of a man called these people racists,
Oh, I know.
misogynists, extreme right wing, and you son of a Dave,
I hear you.
the nerve of this little
Son
weasel.
of a Fidel lover. There you go.
Let me, enlighten you, Justin. These are the people that grow and produce the food that's on your table, because a lot of the people here are farmers. Most of them are farmers. These are the ones that put food on your table. And then these are the ones that deliver the food to your grocery store. And you call them all these miserable names and, oh, misogynist. Oh, you think grandma that was standing out there with the Canadian flag is a misogynist? Do you think the 3-year-old girl in the snowsuit playing in the snow was a misogynist? Miserable excuse. But listen, Dave, this is the left, okay? Here we call them liberals. In the United States, you call them Democrats. But you got to understand, this is their playbook. You see, they're all liars and lunatics. They have no argument at all. You cannot talk to these people. You cannot debate them. You cannot reason with them. All they know how to do is run and hide, call you names, racist, Nazi, extreme right wing. They call you names, and then they hit you over the head with a bicycle lock. I mean, this is what we're dealing with. These people are insane. It's a mental illness. Leftism, Bolshevism, Democrat, liberal, it's a mental illness. And we saw how that happened with Justin Castro. He hears the trucks are coming. And then suddenly, all of a sudden, even though he's had 3 jabs, 3, but he was within the vicinity of somebody that tested positive. And so he had to flee into isolation. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. What a coward. That's why they call him here the coward of the country. You know,
Unless he has pre-morbid conditions at his age, he has nothing to fear.
of course not.
Shows you what a wimp he is.
Exactly. And by the way, if those injections worked, why would you have to go running into quarantine? But of course, that we know that was an excuse. He just ran and hid. Now, Dave, I know you've been a coach for sports teams for most of your life, and you are the kind of man that understands what leadership is. Is that the behavior of a leader? The leader
Behavior, Stefan, it's the behavior of a coward.
It's the behavior of a coward, exactly, and that's what he is. But let me just give a brief background for your American listeners that don't know who this little twerp is. He is hands down the most unqualified, least experienced, most inept person to hold the office of Prime Minister that ever lived. He would not get a job as a barista at Starbucks if it was not for the fact that his father was Pierre Trudeau, who was the Prime Minister of Canada for 4 terms, Dave, 4 terms. If ever we needed a limit on the number of terms somebody could serve, it's here in Canada. And it's Pierre Trudeau, by the way, that pretty much turned Canada into a communist country. He instituted all these programs, the mass immigration, for example, from third world countries. That was Pierre. So Justin, his qualifications for being Prime Minister of Canada, is that he was a snowboard instructor and he was a part-time substitute drama teacher at a high school where he hit on all the underage girls and recently had to pay $2.2 million in hush money to one of the underage girls he was having sex with. That's
Whoa, this is not making the news down here in the States.
oh,
So
of course
you're
not.
saying that Justin Castro, i.e. Trudeau, he is actually paying off pedophilia on his part with high school girls?
Yes, yes,
Wow.
yeah. They tried to hide it here too. They said, well, let's say he's paying a non-disclosure agreement into a trust fund for this woman for $2.5 million or $2.25 million, something like that. But hey, look, you and I both know what this is. This is hush money, right? And
Anybody else, they'd be in jail and the inmates would be waiting for them.
of course, yeah. Listen, but what else is new, Dave? We know that all our politicians are pedophiles. All of them. It's disgusting. I think you have to be a pedophile to be even qualified to run for office now in this world. But anyways, so that's Justin, a part-time substitute drama teacher. He is literally, and this is going to sound really bad, the bastard son of a whore. Literally, because everybody here now calls him Justin Castro. I think that cat is out of the bag. There's been videos made showing the timeline of how Margaret, his mother, was in Cuba at exactly around the time of conception needed for him to be born, and how she fawned over Fidel. Oh, he was so charismatic. Yeah, well, I guess, there's a bit of, magnetic attraction to mass murderers like Fidel Castro. She didn't admit to Fidel Castro in her tell-all autobiographies, but she admitted to sleeping with, I don't know, half the country, basically, all of the Rolling Stones, even though all kinds of people. She, it's a big tell-all book. And she didn't mention Fidel, but everybody is suggesting it. And yeah, the older Justin becomes, the more and more he looks like Fidel Castro. He could be his clone. He's like mini-me Fidel. That's the story of Fidel Castro. No experience, no talent. I call him a trust fund psycho. This is somebody that's never worked a day in his life, that has never had to think about how he's going to pay the rent at the end of the month. He's never had to balance a checkbook. And this guy is supposed to run a country. This is how insane the left is. He's already been elected 3 times, believe it or not. I don't believe it. I think the votes are rigged. It was all computer machine voting. I can't believe, especially after I see now these people on the side of the road supporting the truckers, good salt of the earth people, honest, hard-working people that are too busy working and providing for their families to have to pay attention to all the little cons and schemes and swindles that our government are inflicting us on a daily basis. They don't have, they don't have the time to worry about all that, but they're awake now, Dave. They're out on the streets, they're in Ottawa, they're in their trucks. And so that's a brief background on Justin Castro. What a disgrace.
Yeah, he no doubt is. But I do have a few questions here for you. Since we're not getting a lot of news out of Canada now except the controlled mainstream media. And I look at this, and here's what I wonder. We know the truckers are large in number and volume. We know there's support along the sides of the road. We've seen that. But when you go to the rank and file Canadian, would you describe it as still largely apathetic? Is there a turning of the worm, so to speak? Tell me how the general public is. Where's their state of mind at now?
Well, in the small town that I live in, my greeting to people that I meet in the grocery store, at the beer store, at the fish and chip takeout, my greeting to all my fellow Canadians is F Trudeau. you know, and they all repeat the greeting back to me. Yeah, F Trudeau. Let's go Trudeau. That is
Go Brandon, go, huh?
go Brandon. That's right. Go Brandon. This is the greeting that I've been giving to everybody in the town when I meet them, and they're all in agreement. But this is a small farming community. These are people that have had to, work for a living. They don't work for the government. They put in long hours and they do the right thing. They're, like I said, salt of the earth, just like a Norman Rockwell painting. And the friendliest, kindest, most generous people I have come across in a long time. But you go to Toronto or Montreal or Ottawa, they're all liberal enclaves. They're all democratic enclaves. And and most of them work for the government. You see, people that work for the government have a vested interest in protecting it, because anybody that works for the government, and I'm going to be talking about this in my next installment of Paradise Stolen, and that is, the vast majority of people that work for government are nothing more than parasites. They produce nothing. Their entire daily activity revolves either directly or indirectly taxing people, stealing money from the people that actually produce wealth. And so they're all firmly indoctrinated into this globalist government, leftist, Bolshevik ideology. But the people in the small towns, no, they're not falling for this. They are really vehemently anti-Trudeau, anti-lockdown. And again, this is not so much a political thing. The left has made it political, okay? Because if you disagree with them, then you're extreme right-wing, militia.
Yeah. Yeah, same thing here. Same exact.
Nazis, they're all Nazis. Oh, Jesus, it's what an insult. When you see the people here, nice, friendly, kind, helpful, hardworking, fresh-faced people, and then to call them Nazis. You miserable. But that's the left. That's the left. That's all they got. All they have is insults and name-calling, because they cannot defend their position, their ideology, or what they do with anything approaching a rational argument, and they know it. That's why we see this massive censoring. You can't voice an opinion that they don't agree with. You'll get censored, you'll get banned, and that's it. They don't want to hear it.
You just described America. You may want to, after our interview, go up to my website at thecommonsenseshow.com. I wrote an article, and what I talked about in there, as bad as it is getting in Canada, with the stealing of people's resources, taking their bank accounts, intercepting fundraising money, which is no more than theft, and on and on and on it goes. We have a litany of legislation that came in under Obama and a couple under Bush that are far worse than what you have in Canada, and people think it can't happen here. And I'm here to tell you what you're hearing from our guest, ladies and gentlemen, and what's transpiring in Canada is a drop in the bucket compared to what this administration is going to do to Americans. Let's talk about the coverage. Are you able to track the truckers and the convoy and the issues there, or is there a news blackout? And if so, how do you get your news?
Well, of course, there's a news blackout. Mainstream media won't cover it, other than to send one of their reporters into the crowd with a swastika and then quickly take pictures of them.
Sure. Like the blackface guy that I saw on day one with a Confederate flag wrapped around him. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is Canada. What the hell do they care about a Confederate flag for? What a stupid ass, excuse my French, plant that was. We knew that was false flag material right there. In fact, the Canadians in the video that I saw called him out.
Yes.
They said, hey, you're a plant. Get out of here. You're not with us.
Yep. The good thing is that the truckers and the people that support this movement are aware of these false flag attempts. They know perfectly well, ever since the G8 riots in Toronto back in, 2008 or something like that. They had big demonstrations here against the G8 meeting, and lo and behold, police vehicles were being burned and shop windows were being broken into, and it turned out that all of the looting and burning and destruction was carried out by undercover officers. They, they all wore the same boots.
Jeez. Yeah, jack boots.
Yeah, they all wore the same jack boots. So
booted decks. Yep.
since 2008, we know that our own government will send in, infiltrate with instigators. But look, Dave, that they've done that there in the U.S. as well. Like every time there's a Black Lives riot, suddenly skids of bricks suddenly appear on the streets.
Oh, I hear you. Yeah. No, I hear exactly what you're saying. There's no question. Well, they've started arresting the leadership. What can you tell us about what you know that's going on now in terms of the latest?
Oh, just to answer your question first, no, mainstream media doesn't cover it, but I get my news from a bunch of Canadian bloggers, people that are on the ground, like Rebel News is pretty good, and Lauren Southern, and who's the other woman? She's a Christian woman, blonde, very, very lovely woman. She's on the ground there. And so there's a lot of Canadian bloggers that are there on the ground talking to the people. And from what I've seen, Dave, what's going on in Ottawa is like Woodstock, the festival, with trucks. I mean, they're dancing, they're laughing, they set up bouncy castles because a lot of them brought their children. Like same as I saw on the overpass. Here, families came. They brought their kids and it's a good thing they did bring their kids because, God damn it, this is a historic moment. Never before in Canadian history have we seen such unity and such common purpose and bravery. And I'll be honest with you, Dave, standing on that bridge, I had tears of joy. I really did because we haven't seen this. We've been under this socialist tyranny now for 20 years in Canada, more, because Pierre, Justin's father, ushered all that crap in when he was prime minister. He destroyed this country, make no mistake about it. Everybody else is just mopping up the pieces, and not only I was crying, other people that were standing there, they had tears of joy in their eyes, Dave. This is what it was. The camaraderie, the unity, the peace, and the love was overwhelming. Half the people in the audience, in the crowd, was crying. So, what was the question, Dave? Now I'm going off on a tangent.
No, you're good. I was asking how you got your news, and you said bloggers, and that kind of leads me into another question. We're hearing stories here in the United States that your social media has been shut down in terms of getting the word out from Canada. So are the social media bloggers, are they able to go back and forth with each other inside the country but can't export their findings?
Yes, within the country you are still getting it. I don't know about them blocking it going outside the Canadian borders. I wouldn't doubt it.
That's been in our news here.
Yeah.
That's been reported in the mainstream media that they're shutting that down.
But no, but things are even worse than I've mentioned. This is the good news. The good news is that Canada has united. Justin Castro has finally achieved what he was trying to do, and that is unite the country. And the country is united in common hatred of this dictator. It gets worse. Now, recently what he's done is declared a state of emergency. What this is, it used to be called the War Powers Emergency Act. And in Canada, it was instituted twice, once during World War I and once during World War II. Then it was renamed because they thought Wartime Emergency Powers Act sounded too scary, so they renamed it. It's basically the same thing. They renamed it the Emergency Powers Act, and it was instituted once again by Justin's daddy, supposed alleged daddy, Pierre Trudeau, back in 1988 during what was called the FLQ crisis. So there was a Marxist group in Quebec that was pushing for secession from the rest of Canada. They wanted Quebec to become a French-speaking country within Canada, and they had, sent out a bunch of pipe bombs, and they kidnapped a politician and a high-level bureaucrat, and threatened to execute them, and so it was, quite a bit more serious than bouncy castles in Ottawa, and that's when Pierre Trudeau called out the Emergency Powers Act, recently renamed from the War Powers Emergency Act. But since 1988, it has never been used, not during 9/11, and but now suddenly Justin institutes this War Powers Act. So what they did, and let this be a warning to your listeners, Dave, because what they did here in a period of a week is institute full-blown communist takeover. First, what they did was they stopped their GoFundMe funds. So
I saw that. Yep.
Right? So GoFundMe, and by the way, I did 2 campaigns on GoFundMe that were, successful. But I will never deal with GoFundMe again. That's it. They're on my blacklist.
No, I said the same thing, exactly.
Yeah.
They're a bunch of thieves. They're frauds. I agree.
Yeah. Like, it's not up to them, because first of all, they said, we're going to keep your money and we're going to give it to somebody we like. What? Are you insane?
I know. I hear you. Why don't they just come to our houses and start carrying out our furniture?
Coming soon, Dave. Coming soon.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to open that door, literally, but yes, I agree with you.
So, anyways, there was a big brouhaha about GoFundMe, and then they decided to finally give people back the money they stole. Anyways, too late, GoFundMe. You've shot yourself in the foot. Nobody's going to deal with you again. Okay, fine. Then the online donations went to a gift, another crowdfunding platform called Give to Get or something, Gift to Fund or something like that.
Yeah, I forget the name of it, but you're close. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Right.
there's so many now, I can't even keep track of them all. So then, Justin and his psychopath sidekick, Christiane, the vice prime minister, deputy prime minister, came out and said that they are going to track the donations that went through that other crowdfunding platform, Gift to Go or something like that, and they're going to track them to the bank accounts that they arrive at here in Canada, and they're going to freeze those bank accounts and take the money. There you go. So, Dave, without recourse to law, without a vote in Parliament, it will be the same thing. Like Biden comes out and says, by the way, everybody who voted for Trump, we're taking your bank account. Boom, done. Forget about it. It's over. You have no say in the matter. No vote in Congress, no approaching the American people, nothing. No, we're going to take your money, that's it, because you voted for Trump. This is the equivalent of what they've done here in Canada. So now they're closing down bank accounts. Now the people are getting nervous. If they close down your bank accounts, freeze it, and that means these people can't pay their rent, they can't buy groceries, they can't pay their mortgage. What are you going to do? And you have no recourse to law, and you have no recourse to remuneration. That's what this lunatic woman said, Christiane something. So there you go. But wait, Dave, it gets worse. They also said that they're going to revoke the driver's license, the commercial driver licenses of all the truckers. They're going to revoke it. Now you don't have a driver's license. You can't work.
Well, can I ask an obvious question here?
Yeah.
How the hell are any goods going to get to the stores now?
Oh, do you think liberals can think that far ahead?
Or do they care? Yeah, I hear you.
Do you think they care? They think groceries just magically appear at the grocery store every day. They have no concept of how the world works because, well, first of all, they never have worked a real job. They don't understand the whole process. And so, yeah, shoot themselves in the foot, just like Gofundme. Shoot yourself in the foot. Then, they also said they were going to suspend the insurance. So now we got the banks working for the government. They're going to take your money. You have no choice about the matter. And now the insurance companies, well, listen, we know the banks and the insurance companies have been in bed with the government for so long now. Those three institutions make me sick to my stomach. But now the insurance companies are going to suspend their insurance. So you can't drive a car here without insurance. It's a $10,000 fine for driving without insurance. So then, wait, Dave, it can't get worse, you say. No, but it can get worse. They also sent in Children's Aid Society to try and kidnap the children. Dave, we've seen this. You know what we're talking
about. Like our Child Protective Services?
Yep. So they sent in Child Protective Services to go around because, again, oh my God, these demonstrators brought their family. So all those little kids, and some of them, the truckers brought their family, their wife and their kids, and they're staying in the cab. And so now Children's Aid or Protective Services, Child Protective Services in the States there, is snooping around. Now, they didn't get anywhere with that because it was too outrageous. People said, wait, what? You're going to take our kids? You're going to take our kids. But they tried, okay, Dave? They tried. But again, this is the liberal, Democrat, Bolshevik playbook, okay? They get vicious, these people. If they don't get their way, they're going to get nasty. So they're going to steal your money. They're going to take your license, make sure you can never work. They're going to suspend your insurance so you can't, you'll have to tow your truck back 3,000 miles to Vancouver, and we're going to take your children. But wait, today it just got better. They said that they were going to bring in Humane Society to pick up the pets of the truckers that get arrested and that those pets will be euthanized.
Oh, my God.
They're going to kill your dog. They're going to kill your... Dave, okay, I'm going to start yelling and swearing. I got to stop.
Oh, I hear you. I'm just as angry as you are. This is... but it shows the nature of this government. So let's project ahead for a moment. We can return to the scene. But there's no doubt that the government has the ability to remove these trucks and arrest the truckers. Eventually, they can overcome the protest. So when ground zero is cleared, what do you see is coming next?
Well, what I see is coming next is a vindictive, spiteful attack. All gloves are off. Well, look, all the gloves are off already, Dave. They're going to take your money. They're going to take your vehicle. They're going to take your license. They're going to take your children. They're going to take your dog and shoot it. It's already off. How much worse can it get? The next stage, Dave, is the gulags and the concentration camps. And what? That's not going to happen? Look, they arrested a very famous pastor here in Toronto. No, in Alberta. Because he continued to give sermons at his little church. Now, Alberta is like Canada's version of Texas, okay? It's big, it's wide open, it's all cowboys, and farmers. And he has a small church there, and he keeps giving sermons, and they've shut him down like 6 times. They've already arrested him 6 times. Now, the latest report is again, they arrested him a couple of days ago.
What are they arresting him for?
Mischief over $5,000.
What do you mean by mischief? I don't get that.
Nobody gets it, Dave. Nobody gets it. But again...
What is he saying that's pissing them off?
He's not saying anything. He's giving sermons. He's holding church service on Sundays and allowing people that are unvaccinated to attend his service.
Ah, okay, that's it.
That's what it is. But look, what it really is it's another person that's not caving into the dictatorship. And so, you know how it is.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to get you. They're going to hammer you down. They're going to make an example out of you. They're going to make sure everybody is terrorized by what they do to this innocent man who all he does is he gives a sermon. And if people, Dave, freedom of religion is enshrined in the Constitution. We don't really have that here in Canada. We should have. I personally believe that people can worship whoever they want. And if they want to go to church, that is their God-given right to do so. But not here in communist Canada. Justin Trudeau don't like no Christians. And so they're making an example of this guy. And he's being held in solitary confinement in what he says is the dirtiest cell in the entire prison, and they haven't even given him a glass of water in over 24 hours. This is torture, Dave. So, you want to hear about the stories, about the gulag. They're going to take
Do you know what his name is? Let's get this out.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to have to...
Okay.
I can Google it quickly, but...
Yeah, you can look that up, but I want to get this story out. But we know Christian persecution is coming because Christianity is in my opinion, the birthplace of freedom, because you're free to choose Satan or Jesus. And they can't have that. They can't have a higher authority than their government. That's why.
That's why
they do what they do, and of course they embrace every form of perversion that Christians don't. So, that's another reason as well too. So
yeah,
this is just beyond belief. But let's go back to my question. I want to expand on this a little bit more.
Sure.
Okay, so assuming a time in the near future where the truckers are cleared out, and there's a relative state of normality in Ottawa, for example, and the border bridges are open. So let's take a look at. You told me the government's going to get more repressive, and what you're describing very clearly is the Chinese social credit system.
Exactly.
Now, how are the people going to respond? Not just the truckers, but do you have a sense of where Canadians are at? Because I'm not sure this is over just because they can end a protest.
No, it's not going to be over, Dave. The protesters and the people that I talk to, they are pissed. They are very angry, just like me. All I do is run around yelling and swearing all day. Who's that crazy old man in the park yelling and swearing?
Go
Trudeau. No, but they're not going to back down. So it's going to be resistance. It's going to be passive resistance. And by the way, this has instituted a run on the banks here now because Canadians don't trust the banks.
Well, after what's happened, they shouldn't.
I know. Did you vote Conservative in the last election?
There you go.
No soup for you.
Listen, I'm hearing these stories about bank confiscations and then the subsequent bank runs. That is leaked down to here. I was talking to Sheila Zielinski. I interviewed her a week ago, and she said it's rumored this is going to start, and then we heard it did start. And I'm telling people in America this. I peddle on my radio show. We got to do an ad here. In fact, let me go to the ad right now because it's timely. Only keep operating capital in the bank, and you're going to hear why in just a second from our guest. Only keep operating capital in the bank. Do not let them pay you 0.1% interest on your account, why they can loan out the money here under fractional reserve banking at 9 times for every dollar they have. I mean, don't let them do that. And don't let them have the right to steal your money. In fact, once the courts have ruled here in America, once you've deposited your money, the banks technically own it, although they haven't seized accounts yet, unless it's a force of law. But the reason they haven't is because people would take their money out. But when the banks start to falter, and that day's coming, your account's gone. So whatever you have in the bank, you need to be prepared to lose it. But right now, you got to pay mortgage, you got to pay rent, food, so forth. So you only want to keep operating capital. I want to just read to you something very quickly that I wrote the morning of this interview. I listed these acts, and I said, do you think that the Canadians have it bad with their Emergency Act. Patriot Acts 1 and 2 is far worse than what the Canadians have. It's along the same lines, though. But then there's also the NDAA that can come and snatch you off the street because you're declared to be an enemy combatant, terrorist, enemy of the state. And here in America, Stefan, if you go to a school board meeting and protest, you're classified as a domestic terrorist.
Yes.
Now DHS, Department of Homeland Security, came out this week with a memo and said if you protest anything against the government, you're a domestic terrorist. So they can snatch you off the street. They've given themselves permission. Executive Order 13603 enslaves you in every part of your life, including slave labor. All your resources belong to the government if they declare an emergency. What you're hearing north of the border, we have legislation here that's actually worse than what our Canadian friends are going through. So, Steph, I don't know if you knew about this or not.
Yes, I know, Dave.
But we have, most of the stuff came in under Obama. Not all of it, but most of it.
Sure.
It was designed for Hillary. Do you know who's making a political comeback in America? Hillary. This is scary. This is scary, scary. So, let's talk about, okay, the world devoid of protest in Ottawa. What are the Canadians going to do next? Because I don't see this being over. What kind of actions do you anticipate?
But so what are Canadians going to do? They're going to continue to resist as best they can. But you're going to have to understand, and for my American listeners and my friends down south of the border, guys, this is coming to you too. The other thing is also what you were talking about with the water filtration systems. I just bought a still, so I can now distill my own water. I got a big 5-gallon still, so I'll distill my own water.
I'm coming to your house for the party if you got a still.
Yeah, plus I'm going to be making the moonshine. So if, shit hits the fan and everything collapses, I am your local moonshine dealer.
I like it. Oh, that's great.
I'll be part of the black
really
market.
Terrific.
And I also bought more antibiotics. And
I'm doing a podcast, same day we're doing the broadcast here. And I'm talking about what medicines are going to be in short supply here very quickly. And you just mentioned one of them.
Yeah.
The antibiotics, no question.
Yeah, I stock up on antibiotics. I just bought another 100 capsules,
Where'd you get them at?
Should I say it on air?
Well, you can't get a prescription for very much. So can you tell me without getting anybody in trouble? Maybe you just tell me off air.
Sure, I can tell you. It's fish antibiotics.
Oh, yeah, okay, sure.
You know who I'm talking about,
My
right?
friend Bob Griswold, Ready Made Resources, sells that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, I have taken this stuff. I had a gum infection about 3 years ago. I took 2 of these antibiotics. Was gone in an hour. No, you got to keep it, stockpile antibiotics. Even if you don't need them yourself, they're barter items. People will kill for antibiotics because, and I tell people, because I do consulting, right? I can consult people on being prepared and how to get their plans in order. Correct. And I tell them, okay, so, I tell everybody to have a medical kit, which is more than a first aid kit. It's, you want to have all your supplements in there and your herbal teas in there and even things like an IV and a stethoscope. I mean, it's a beefed up first aid kit. But I always tell them, stockpile some antibiotics. If you can get them from your doctor, your dentist, or whatever, always ask for an extra prescription and then stockpile it because if not for you, make yourself useful to the community. So I say, what if your next door neighbor's 12-year-old daughter has a bacterial pneumonia and the hospitals aren't open, no ambulance is coming, there's no doctors, there's no pharmacies, and she is going to die unless you get her 15 caplets of antibiotics, and you could save her life. Wouldn't you want to save her life? Even if you don't use it, make yourself useful. I bought extra antibiotics, and I'm thinking of shotgun shells, but I think I have enough. I don't know.
No, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. We're going to make another run ourselves on what you just mentioned there.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you your opinion on something here very quickly. I have a quick answer on this.
Sure.
Do you think that the banks, now that people are coming and pulling their money out, Are they going to stop that? Are they going to limit withdrawals? Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't heard anything about it, but it's not in their interests to stop withdrawals. I've heard that some ATM machines have run out of cash. We've seen this before in certain places during, natural disasters. I can't remember specifically the incidents, but I know, like, during hurricanes or during hurricanes and tsunamis and things like that, people all ran to the bank and got. Are we still here?
Yeah, you cut out for a second here. Now they're screwing with us. There's no question.
Yeah, no, I thought they cut us off again. So I've heard of the ATMs running out of cash here. The banks, the insurance companies, the pharmaceutical companies, the big tech, Facebook and Amazon. Look, they're all in bed together. It's all just one big criminal enterprise. So yeah, they can do whatever the hell they want. They own everything.
I hear you. We got about a minute left, and I wanted you to be able to talk about what you do and how people can follow your good work.
Okay, well, thanks, Dave. You can find all my stuff on my website, www.chinastrategies, one word, chinastrategies.com. And, I've written a lot of books and done a lot of interviews and created a lot of videos. If you Google my name, Stefan Verstappen, on YouTube, I got hundreds of videos. But what I would recommend for the listeners right now is my best-selling product is a download. What I have done since I started prepping, I started prepping when I was 16, but since the internet and back in 1995, I've been collecting survival books, all kinds, you name it.
Okay, and you can get that at your site?
You can get that at my website. 300 survival books plus all my books.
Sounds great. Well, we are flat out of time, up against it. But listen, this was really informative to get an inside story from Canada. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome.
Keep me updated. Well, I'll get you back on for an update.
I'll send you a link to this story about the pastor.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome, Dave. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
You too.